Hey guys, this is Druin the Happy Monk here. I know I haven't made a video in a while, but I'm going to try and make a couple more because I've got some pretty cool ideas. This video is going to be about my review of the Datamined changes on Reaper of Souls that were released on DiabloFans.com. So what they did basically is they datamined some sort of patch information that they got ahead of time, and they were able to extract things that were potential changes to the game. And many of them may or may not go live, but I think it's really useful to take a look at them and see what it would be like right now if these changes hit and what that would mean for the monk class. Alright, so let's get going here. Okay, so this is DiabloFans.com right here, and you can see they have it for every other class too. This is Demon Hunter, but I'm just going to take a look at the monk ones. And some of the stuff doesn't matter, like here you can see they changed the word increases to the word increase. So fleet-footed is not having any substantial changes that we can tell. Same thing for Exalted Soul, no change. Transcendence. So here's the first big change, and it's a huge one. So Transcendence has changed to every spirit or point of spirit spent heals you for 161 instead of 62. So that's nice, but not really impactful. But then they added this little thing that says heal amount is increased by 1% of your health globe healing bonus. And what that means is that if you stack plus to globes, your spirit or life per spirit spent goes up dramatically. So I actually did a couple. Let's see. We'll go over here. All right. So let's see what that would look like, right? So let's say you have 40,000 globes, and that's a pretty easy amount to get on gear without sacrificing major stats. So like without sacrificing tons of your DPS or tons of your EHP, you should be able to get about 40,000. Globes. So it's 1% of that, right? So that times, so you get an additional 400, and then you have that plus 165.1. Okay, so you have 565.1 life per spirit spent, which is pretty sweet. So now let's say you cast a mantra, right? That heals you for 28,255. That's actually fairly close to a full heal. So, and that's with only 40k globes. If you assume that like you actually want to go the life per spirit spent route, then obviously life per spirit spent on items is terrible garbage, because instead of that you can just get plus to globes, and it's flat better in every way. 12k plus to globes is the same as 120 life per spirit spent if you're using Transcendence. So if you had, for instance, 80 instead, you'd end up with 48k healed per mantra, and like that's actually pretty good. Like, I mean, it's going to be hard to tell whether or not that's viable compared to lifesteal. I've heard from some people that lifesteal is going to get changed, so if that happens, then sweet, that's really awesome. Life per spirit spent looks like it might be viable. All right, so Transcendence, very cool. I'm skeptical. I'm going to hold off on saying that it's amazing because it's still a much smaller heal than lifesteal currently gives us. So like my bells heal for hundreds of thousands per cast. And it would be a lot less than that, but it does open up the avenue. Plus, I love seeing this heal amount increased by health globes, because that gives the globe stat value in the game. The more valuable they make stats that aren't dexterity critical hit chance, the better. Alright, so seize the initiative, no changes. Beacon of Yatar, no changes. Guiding Light, no changes. Combo Strike, no changes. NDE got this change. It says when near death, or when NDE is on cooldown, your health globe bonus, life per second, and life per hit are all increased by 35%. I think that that's going to end up, well, it depends. It depends on where they go with this. So in the iteration that's here, so when it's on cooldown you get this bonus, it's basically useless. Because the bonus is something you could build a monk base off of. Like you could actually build a monk to want those stats, and then you could buff them with NDE. That would be very cool. As it is, it has to be on cooldown for you to get the bonus, which means that it's not happening most of the time. So like this basic thing that you need for your monk to function is more than half the time not there. So that's pretty bad. I would like to see this be all the time. And if that happens, this is sort of like the Guardian's path for globes, life per second, and life per hit monks, which I think is really, really cool. We'll have to see how that works, but it's nice to see that they're supporting it, I guess. Alright, so now we get to the really big stuff. So this is pretty huge. They did a bunch of stuff. So Fist of Thunder now generates 8 spirit per attack instead of 6. it now has teleport to your target on the base rune of Fist of Thunder. So no longer is Thunderclap the only way to teleport. The damage per hit on the first 2 hits is increased from 110 to 145, so a substantial increase in damage, although that is probably pretty meaningless, as I'll go into. And then they drastically changed how the third hit works. So the third hit, instead of being 110% weapon damage as a cone in front of you, is now 275% damage as a cone in front of you that then is split between all the mobs that you hit. So if you hit 1 mob, it hits for 275. If you hit 2 mobs, it hits for half of 275 on each of them. This makes Fist of Thunder essentially a worse AoE skill, because all you have to do is hit 3 mobs, as I can show you here. So you go 275, if you divide that by 3, if you're hitting 3 mobs, it's now doing less than it used to. So it used to do 110, now it does 91. That's not entirely true, because they also added releases a chain lightning dealing 73% weapon damage. My guess is that this is either not true or Bounding Light will be changed. My guess is that this is a typo in the coding, and that this is actually what Bounding Light does. There's no way for me to confirm that, so if this does happen, if there is released Chain Lightning on the actual rune itself, like the base rune, that's pretty amazing, because you actually get an additional 73% damage on each of your targets, up to 3 targets. And that's also an additional proc. So, assuming it has a proc coefficient, it can do things like spawn cyclones, it can proc quickening when it crits. So, it's very interesting. We'll have to see where that goes. Again, my guess, though, is that this is not true. It does not release Chain Lightning, that's what Bounding Light still does. So then they changed some of the other runes. So, Thunderclap no longer teleports, because the base rune does. Still has the 35% AoE damage, so we don't know, because it doesn't tell us in this whether or not they're changing the proc coefficient of different skills. I'm going to hope that they reduce the Thunderclap proc coefficient. If they don't, Thunderclap will still almost certainly be the best rune. Oh, I totally forgot to mention, so they have causes knockback on 3rd hit with Thunderclap, which means that the knockback is removed from the base rune of Fist of Thunder, so the 3rd hit will no longer pop mobs backward. I personally hate the knockback, so that's nothing but upgrade for me. I know there are some monks who use it as a survivability tool. In that case, those monks will probably want to be using Thunderclap anyway. So I think that works for both parties. People who use it as a survivability tool are probably using Thunderclap, and people who don't would be people like me who want it for quickening. Also, the change from 6 to 8 spirit is kind of bonkers. So if you see, here's what the math used to be. So it used to be 6 times 1.52, which is the attack speed modifier of Thunder, or Fist of Thunder. So it used to make 9.12 spirit per second when attacking. Now it makes 8 times 1.52, which is 12.16. That's far more spirit per second than any of the other spirit generators. So I think what they're doing, my guess is that they're making it so that Fist of Thunder is much harder to use as an AoE by making its 3rd hit do way less damage once there's 3 or more mobs than it used to do. And they're compensating the monk for not being able to do AoE damage by making Fist of Thunder just better at everything. So it does 145% weapon damage, which is a lot, and it gens 8 spirit, which is a lot. So you get more of everything, but you give up your ability to do AoE damage. I think this is a fantastic change. I'm really in favor of this. If they decrease the proc coefficient on Thunderclap, then it will actually add a lot of variety, I think. If they don't decrease the proc coefficient on Thunderclap, there's basically no argument against this still being the best rune. Sweeping Wind Cyclone is too good, and Thunderclap will continue to do what it used to do, except that Fist of Thunder, Thunderclap monks will just get buffed. It's just a straight flat buff to all Fist of Thunder, Thunderclap monks. Because your 2 first hits do an additional 35% damage, you gain more spirit per second, and that's it. There's no difference for you. You still have the knockback, you still have the AoE. So we'll have to see how that works out. I'm really hoping that the proc coefficient's nerfed a little bit so that Fist of Thunder, Thunderclap is not the only rune that you can use. I'd like to see Bounding Light be available for some situations, and Static Charge as well. One thing I did think of is if Static Charge, so there's no changes to Bounding Light or Static Charge, they both do the same thing. If Static Charge is now allowed to proc via the new third hit AoE, on multiple monsters, static charge can be really good. Its big downside was that only one guy was ever allowed to have a static charge per attack that you made, and it makes it really hard to use because there's no way to get static charge on a bunch of guys at once.
This is from discovering what it's like to
Really?
discover.
You son of a bitch. Well. Anyway, so right, quickening, no change, but if so, this is one of those ifs. If this chain lightning is true for the third hit of Fist of Thunder on its base rune, quickening got a huge buff because every third hit now has 3 additional chances to crit essentially. If it doesn't, then, which I don't think it does, then yeah, no change to quickening, except it gets a teleport, which is pretty rad. No change to lightning flash, which is still terrible. Alright, Deadly Reach, they increased the spirit per hit to 7. Nobody cares, because that doesn't really do anything. And then has a 30% chance to knock up enemies. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to go ahead and say this is terrible. I don't see any reason for this rune, or for this spirit generator. None of the other runes had any change. Oh, that's not true. Scattered Blows has wording changes that make it possibly a viable rune. So, as it is right now, Scattered Blows changes your third hit to stomp the ground instead of shoot forward, and it hits 6 random enemies around you for 170% weapon damage. And the reason this is good is because its attack animation is far faster than the normal third hit attack animation for Deadly Reach. So the DPS from Scattered Blows is actually higher than Thunderclaps, significantly higher than Thunderclaps. The problem with it is that hitting only 6 enemies sucks, and then just Deadly Reach in general sucks, and then proc coefficients are far more important than just flat damage, so Thunderclap ends up being better as long as you're using Sweeping and Cyclone. If this change randomly damages enemies within 25 yards, changes it so that it's not corralled at 6, it could possibly be a good skill. I'm not sure what randomly damages means because they've removed the up to 6 here. So we'll have to see where that goes. Scattered Blows is something to look at least, once these changes go live. The rest of it was just normal changes, or wording changes, and they suck. Strike from Beyond, I mean, still sucks compared to Quickening. Keen Eye still sucks. Piercing Trident still absolutely sucks. And Foresight is still good if you want the buff. Breath of Heaven. The cost was reduced to 0, apparently. Cost 0 spirit is my guess, because they just said cost by 25 spirit canceled out. Cooldown, same. Still heals you, but now it heals you for way more, like way more than twice more. So the heal is actually substantial. That's nice. And the heal amount is increased by 100% of your health globe and healing bonus. I think that's really cool. So again, at 40k globes, that means that's full healing every monk that's out there right now. There's very few monks in the game that have over 59,000 life. I think with all my Vit gear on, my monk like caps out at 80k. So that's a pretty sweet change. Breath of Heaven is going to be pretty amazing. In PvP especially, that's pretty bonkers, because that means Breath of Heaven now full heals you and is on a 15-second cooldown. So people only have 15 seconds to kill you completely. We'll have to see how that works out. It also has no spirit cost, which is pretty amazing. Then they changed Circle of Life to just be a higher number. Circle of Life, quite obviously not usable. I mean, so you get an additional, 5,000, which means that if you have a single item with 5,000 globes, it's the same as taking an entire rune. Probably not worth it. Blazing Wrath is still probably the way to go there. But very cool. It's a way to heal yourself to full. I like that. The pace of the game currently is such that it's probably not that useful. The pace of the game is so quick that getting a full heal is pretty much equivalent to life stealing with a single skill. So we'll have to see how that plays out. It's possible that Reaper of Souls is going to be a little bit slower, and if it's a little bit slower, a little bit less life bar going like this, it's very possible that this sort of full heal thing would be important. Again, cool to see your health globe bonus mattering. Cyclone Strike, no changes to the actual skill. Sweet change to Soothing Breeze. So Soothing Breeze is increased to 3.3k life healed, and then again, 20% of your health globe bonus. That's actually really sweet, because Soothing Breeze was already useful to proc Guiding Light, And now if you stack globes, you could actually heal your group. You could have an actual healer in Diablo if you wanted to. Is it useful? Definitely remains to be seen. You can get a lot of minus Cyclone Strike cost gear, and you could spam Soothing Breeze and be invincible without lifesteal. So there is there's potential, is what I'm going to say. I'm not sure that it's useful, but there's potential. It's nice to see. The other runes, again, useless. Serenity, cost removed. I think everyone is going to be happy with that change. That's a quality of life change that monks have been wishing was the case for quite some time. It is a terrible feeling, especially for you hardcore folks out there, to hit Serenity and then just have it not happen because you don't have Spirit. So it'd be great to have no Spirit cost on that one. Again, for PvP, that's also pretty sweet. Peaceful Repose gets the same way increased heal and then also increased by health glow bonus treatment. Again, for PvP, that's pretty bonkers. So we're going to have to see if PvP is even a thing after these changes hit, because I run Peaceful Repose 100% in PvP, and I run it for its tiny ass heal, and I run also 45k globes or something like that. So this would be a 65k heal on my Serenity, which is sweet, I guess. I'm happy about it. Ren Barb is probably not a thing anymore. Alright, and then all the runes remain the same, so it's still going to be between Peaceful Repose and, I think, is that true? Yeah, and Ascension are the two Serenity runes. Crippling Wave did not get a Spirit per attack increase, which I just don't understand, as it's already the slowest. But apparently they were like, yeah, you don't need to generate Spirit when you're using Crippling Wave. So that's that. It did get a quality of life damage increase from 110 to 125. That's not huge, but that's not nothing. So Crippling Wave is already almost competitive with Fist of Thunder in some contexts. It's worse in single target always, but everything's always worse than Fist of Thunder in single targets. There are builds popping up here and there, especially endgame monk builds, where Crippling Wave is a viable spirit generator. Specifically Rising Tide, I think, is what's used on almost all endgame monks. So, more damage is never a bad thing. It's probably not going to be make or break, but it's cool. Days within 11 yards, this sort of rewording indicates not that it is being increased in range as much as it is actually 11 yards in the game right now, and this is more for explanation. So I would expect that were we to test it, Crippling Wave's third hit would have a range of 11 yards. It is being increased to a 60% slow from a 30% slow. It's quality of life improvements. It's another reason to use Crippling Wave. That high of a slow is actually impactful to the game. So it'll be a lot harder for things to run away and a lot harder for things to chase you. It's not nothing. It's not going to make me immediately choose Crippling Wave, but it's not nothing. Mangle does a lot of damage, but again, probably doesn't matter. Tsunami, I don't know what happened here. They just nerfed the bejesus out of it, because it's one of its big things was snaring to 60%, and they just took that away. So now it just increases the range of the third hit, which doesn't matter at all. So I don't know. Tsunami got totally screwed here. Unfortunate. Then the other two, no changes. Rising Tide is still, in my opinion, the best and probably only Crippling Wave rune. Mantra of Healing. Alright, so here's another case of quality of life improvements. So the range on Mantra of Healing increased from 40 yards to 60 yards. That's pretty cool. People who are using Mantra of Healing to proc Guiding Light will have an easier time in groups, is basically what that means. Additionally, the heal is improved by a lot, and the heal amount is increased by your life per second. Pretty non-important for softcore, but for hardcore, Sustenance, Mantra of Healing Sustenance, was a pretty go-to rune, because it allows you to live when you get disconnected. Life per second, not a bad stat in that sort of situation. Now you can double it by using Mantra of Healing. I think that's rad. You can also give it to your teammates. So in the case of group hardcore, which is what a lot of hardcore people do, especially at the higher ends, because it's harder to die if you're in a group, you're actually going to be giving your group substantial life per second. So it's not like 620 is not a substantial amount of life per second. Let's say you have like 3,000 life per second on your character, that's 1.6k plus an additional 3,000. And so you're actually giving out 4.6k life per second to everyone in your group. That's a lot. I mean, that's actually a noticeable amount. I like that a lot. I personally like mantra healing circular breathing, so I'll just see it as a bonus. It's not really important, but it's a bonus. The activated absorb amount is also increased by your health load bonus. Again, cool quality of life improvement. The shield used to be, God, I don't know, 930, an amount that is not an amount, so that was not a thing. You activated mantra of healing one time to turn it on, and then whenever you needed guiding light. Other than that, there was never a reason to turn it on. A 2,477 shield with, let's say, 15%. So let's hit up a little bit of math. So let's say you have 80k globes. Okay, so that's a lot. And then we're gonna do that times 15%. So that's actually a 12,000 point heal. Let's see, you get 2.477 also. So you're actually getting a 14,477 bubble every time you cast MOH. Is that a ton? No, not at all. That's about 20% of my monk's health. But it's not nothing. It's certainly better than 930, and it can make you live, absolutely. So mantra of healing sort of moves up, I would say, maybe a couple notches into the usable for its healing portion realm. Probably not outside of hardcore still, but in hardcore I bet this is going to be well received. And again, sustenance got more than doubled, significantly more, almost tripled in value, which is pretty cool because they were already using sustenance. So you can assume it was already good, and now it's going to be far better. Boon of Inspiration used to give 186 life on hit. That's not an amount. That's almost none. Now it gives 495, which is better than nothing, but still far worse than you can get on a single item. However, it increases your life per hit by 100% of your life per hit. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm super wrong about that. Boon of Inspiration is not the same as... Is that true? Now I'm confused. I thought Boon of Inspiration had life on hit before. So I'm going to go ahead and check that real quick. One sec, guys. I don't believe what I'm seeing. So Boon of Inspiration has 186 life. Oh, I see. It's just worded differently. Also heals 186 life when hitting an enemy. Interesting. I don't know if that's true life on hit or if that is a per hit thing. So that's something worth testing. Let's assume for now it's true life on hit, so it's affected by proc coefficients and whatnot. 495, not nothing. Heal amount increased by 100% of your life per hit is a lot. So let's say you have, you're a life on hit monk, looking at you, Carl. You've got like 1,200 life on hit. That's like a pretty good amount of life per hit. Now this increases it by 1,695. So that's way more. Now you have enough to live through anything when you use this rune. So that's a pretty cool change. I don't know if it's enough to make you use anything but Mantra of Conviction overall, but it does open up the possibility for life on hit monks, which is great. Way of the 100 Fists gains 7 spirit from 8, which is actually a downgrade. I have a theory here, though, that they just didn't post the part where Way of the 100 Fists now hits a lot faster. So my assumption is that if you're going to decrease the spirit per attack, it's because you're increasing the quickness of the attacks. And because Way of the 100 Fist currently can't compete with Fist of Thunder, and Fist of Thunder got better, it seems super unlikely that they're not going to change other fundamental parts of Way of the 100 Fists. It probably just has a higher attack speed bonus now. If it doesn't, it's unusable, but it already was unusable outside of the Nirvana interaction. So that's not super surprising. Oh, and Blazing Fists as a buff. Fist of Fury got no changes, which indicates to me, again, that this is just an indication. There's no way for me to prove it, but my guess is that they have no intention of changing Nirvana at this time, because this would probably say something like I don't know, 100% or like they would change the dot is what I would think if they were going to change Nirvana. Hands of Lightning got a substantial damage increase to 200%, which is cool, I guess. I assume that's only for the second hit. If that's for all 3 hits, Hands of Lightning is actually competitive in damage. If it's just for the second hit, it's probably not. But it's not terrible, I guess. I don't know. It's pretty terrible. Wind Force Flurry. So they added this word also. So you get the third hit and you get a 250% weapon damage wave nuke. I'm going to guess that makes Wind Force Flurry the highest damage per second of any spirit generator. Yeah, it almost certainly does. However, it still sucks. So that's that. Mantra of Conviction. This is a huge change. They changed the radius of MOC. I'm actually going to check that as well. Because it says they're changing it from 20 to 40. I was under the impression that it was 40 right now. Nope, it is 20. Okay, so it's currently 20. They're changing it to 30, increasing that quality of life. So that's cool. I think people are just going to enjoy that. Let's see. What changes are there? So overall stays the same, which is sad for me. I think that's going to make overall continue to be a very strong rune and very hard to compete with because it's so much damage. Dishearten now snares by 60%. That's a lot. That's actually enough to be a reasonable snare. In PvP especially, I could see this being hilarious. Reclamation. This is my favorite change of all the monk things that are changing currently. I'm really, really excited about this. So there's no way for me to prove it because I can't make a build with it, but this is the thing I'm most excited to play around with. When an enemy under the effect of MOC is killed, your allies nearby gain 1% max life and 1% max resources. Again, I'm going to assume this is you as well, if it's not totally useless, but I'm assuming it's you as well, and this is like, whatever it was called, the Paladin Aura, I think it was called like Reclamation or Redemption, maybe, that the things you've killed heal you and give you your resource back. In this case, you get 1% of your max spirit. So at 250 spirit with Exalted Soul, that's 2.5 spirit per mob around you that dies. Let's assume that it's affected in the same way that all other spirit generation is. By Guardian's Path, 1.35 times, and then Templar. So you get 1.47 mod. So now you're going to have 2.5 spirit per monster times 1.47, which is Guardian Path plus Templar. So you actually get 3.675 spirit back for every monster that dies. So let's say you cast like a Bell. You only have to kill 20 mobs to refund the entire cost of the Bell. So ostensibly, were you to do this correctly, you should be able to infinitely cast things based on, as long as there's big groups of enemies to kill. And that's super exciting because so far, monks haven't had an alternate way to gain resources, which has made our builds really constricted. It's basically Fist of Thunder Quickening is your quote-unquote alternate way, and I think that's just bullshit. I want to have really cool things like this. So I'm really excited about Reclamation. I'm really hoping that it works the way that I think it does, and I'm hoping that it's enough to actually work. Intimidation now decreases monster damage by 15% instead of 10%. It's kind of whatever. Ground effects are the things that usually kill people. You'd usually rather have another stat other than that, but if you really need to decrease their damage, it's a way to do it. So we'll see, I guess. Maybe mobs are super hard. Sleeping Winds saw no changes at all. Just some wording changes. Oddly, and this blows my mind, I have no idea why this is the case, Mantra of Retribution, no changes. I gotta assume that because it is Datamined, they just haven't gotten to it yet, but like, this is the worst mantra bar none, and it is now still the worst mantra bar none, because they made no changes at all. So I'm gonna hope, let's all hope, for Mantra of Retribution's sake, that they do choose to change it later. Alright, Exploding Palm, I don't believe saw any changes. No. Exploding Palm saw no changes. Seven-Sided Strike saw no changes, except they reworded Sustained Attack to correctly say by 7 seconds as opposed to 2:23, because its interaction with Beacon of Yatar made no sense otherwise. Now it does make sense, so it's hopefully we'll be able to do some easy testing and figure out if it applies after or before percent reductions. I'm going to guess after, so that you're able to get 50%, it's actually 49% CDR from Diamond in your helm, which is a new gem they're releasing that's 19% CDR. 20% from Beacon of Utar, and then 10% from Paragon levels. And 49% reduced cooldown brings 7-sided strike down to roughly 15 seconds. And then you reduce that again by 7, and you're at like an 18-second cooldown 7-sided strike. So that's cool. I don't think it's useful, but it's cool. It's something we can look into. Wave of Light. Oh, crazy good changes. This is my second favorite thing. So there's no way for us to know that this is the case, but gonna guess. On the text for Wall of Light, they've added "and adds a knockback." That to me indicates that that the base rune and all other non-Wall of Light runes no longer knock back on the third or the fourth hit of Wave of Light. So this 96% weapon damage is wholly to all enemies in the line. Currently knocks back like crazy. Does it say it knocks back? It does not. So as you can see, I'll go to Fields of Misery and just quickly show you exactly what I hate. Knocks them back just like that. It's terrible. It's absolutely awful as a guy who plays a Wave of Light monk all the time. So this basically means Wall of Light is no longer a playable rune, which sucks because Wall of Light's my favorite rune of the Wave of Light runes. However, I will happily give it up. So you gotta sacrifice something, give it up, take Empowered Wave instead, and then never have that knockback problem. So this is a pretty big buff to Wall of Light monks. They were currently pretty stuck on what to do in groups because Wave of Light was our big damage doer for a lot of different specs, and obviously you can't do that if it's going to knock people back because group people will get so mad at you. And we were using Pillar of the Ancients instead, and that is a crap rune. So I'm really glad to hear that Empowered Wave will now be the only usable Wave of Light rune for the most part, but at least it will be very good. So that's a buff. Mantra of Evasion, no changes. Again, I'm going to guess they just haven't gotten there yet, and that changes are in store because Mantra of Evasion also suffers from the most of its runes are terrible problem. It does have that increased range. Cool. Lashing Tail Kick, big changes again. Big changes. Good changes too. Knocks enemies back. Removed from the base rune. Thank the Lord. So, knocking enemies back with LTK. Let me show you exactly how stupid this is. So here's my favorite LTK rune. Spinning Flame Kick. Okay? Looks awesome. You shoot a little tornado thing. Let's go to Fields of Misery and try and kill things with it. What? Why did it fly so far back? What? Why are they flying away from me? Because for whatever reason they thought a rune that's clearly meant to do damage should also make things fly millions of miles away from you. So that's my rant about LTK. And they are removing the knocks enemies back portion. Vulture Claw Kick gets the biggest buff here. As you can see, this is what Vulture Claw Kick currently looks like. For those who've never used it, as there are I'm sure people who have not, it's basically just an AoE around you, and it's actually super good damage. I would use this rune if it didn't do that, but it does, and so it's impossible to use. But it hits really hard, and it does the type of AoE that's really useful, which is 360 degrees instant, and spammable because it costs almost nothing. I would actually use this skill if it did not have a knockback. Will I use it over Wave of Light? Remains to be seen. I probably will. I'll probably make an LTK build. So that's really big. Knockback gone. Hand of Yatar, no difference. It's not changed. Hand of Yatar is a cool rune, but it won't be usable anymore because, well, it won't be necessary anymore because you can actually make real Lashing Tail Kick builds. Sweeping Armada got its damage way increased, and then it still knocks back, which I think is super good because some people loved the knockback on LTK, and you can still have it. You just got to use Sweeping Armada. Scorpion's Sting, no changes. It's a pretty terrible rune, so I would never use it anyway. Tempest Rush. No changes, I think. Oh, the one change for Tempest Rush that people keep pointing out that's not a real change. So they say you run 25% faster when channeling Tempest Rush. And people saw this on the forums and freaked out. They're like, Tempest Rush is even faster. It's not. Tempest Rush already increased your move speed by 25% as the base rune, and then Tailwind is an additional 25%. It just wasn't listed. I promise, if you go in game right now and you equip a non-Tailwind Tempest Rush rune, you will go faster while you're channeling it. 25% faster, in fact. So this is not a buff, it's just an explanation. It's nice to see them confirm that it's 25%, as no amount of testing that I've done has been able to confirm a specific number. But it's cool to see. Other than that, no rune changes at all. Tailwind will still by far be the only usable Tempest Rush rune in this case. Mystic Ally, no changes. Gonna assume they haven't gotten there yet. Mystic Ally is not a very usable skill right now, so. Blinding Flash, no longer costs Spirit. Glad to see it. It's the same sort of just pure value, quality of life thing. It was silly that it did cost Spirit before. No other changes. Alright, Dashing Strike. Big changes. So cost increased from 25 to 50, which when you first see it, you think, cool, it's just not usable anymore. And probably that's true. It's probably actually going to take a pretty big hit here. Dual wield monks, I'm not sure what you're going to do. Probably everyone's going to have to go get that item that they were going to release that makes Tempest Rush free. We'll see. So it now dashes up to 50 yards as opposed to a target. So what that means, almost assuredly, and if this isn't the case, I mean, I guess they just hate people who use Dashing Strike, but 99% sure, you may now dash to a target or to an area, which means wherever you click with your mouse, your guy dashes to instantly. That's a huge upgrade because that basically, Dashing Strike is now the skill Teleport from Diablo 2. However, at 50 spirit cost, obviously that's not going to work out so well. Enemies along the way are now hit as opposed to the enemy that you hit initially. This allows it to be used as an AoE skill as well. It is possible that there will exist a Dashing Strike build that actually kills things with Dashing Strike. Because it hits the things that you move through as opposed to the end target. What does this mean for Dashing Strike? I have no idea. That's a pretty substantial change. That's a different way of playing the skill. I know there's a weapon that they previewed that says if you dash beyond 20 yards, Dashing Strike is free. So if you have that weapon equipped and then Dashing Strike can dash to a specific area, it is just teleport. It's a free, you can free teleport for as long as you want. So we'll have to see if that is abusable or not. Alright, let's look at the runes. So they changed the first from Soaring Skull, which was unusable, to Barrage. So the last enemy you hit, of the enemies you hit, it takes 1,337% weapon damage over 2 seconds. This, to me, the first thing I thought of when I saw this was, cool, I'm going to kill everyone in PvP with this. There's just no point in any other skill. I will only ever use Dashing Strike Barrage because it's a dot, so it's not dodgeable, because that's the way dots work in PvP. And 1,337% damage is more than a bell. so that skill is probably pretty broken in PvP. In PvE, useless, because who the care? Like, no one cares that you do 1,300 damage to the last thing you hit. It's not entirely true. If Dashing Strike turns out to be a great way to move, it could be used as a way to kill elites. Because again, that's more than a Wall of Light bell. So you might actually be able to dash Spirit Gen, dash, Spirit Gen, and kill elites really quickly that way. So there's some potential there. No matter what, it's cool that they're adding things that don't suck. So that's a real skill. It's something that we should look into. I don't think Dashing Strike has a cooldown, as I don't see any cooldown. So this could actually be a viable skill. Way of the Falling Star, no change. I think. Oh no, okay. That's cool. So this actually increases your move speed if you don't hit a target, which greatly increases the value of Way of the Falling Star. Because now you can dash to a target and then run and then dash and then run. Why you would do that when Dashing Strike can move to any target is beyond me. But I mean, it's very nice. It's very cool. 20% dodge, that's nice, but no one cares. Quicksilver reduces it to 30 instead of 10. 30's low enough that it might be viable. So if you take a quick look, here's my monk. Here's another skill that costs 30, which is Lash and Tail Kick. And I have Exalted Soul on, and I don't even have my normal Spirit Regen gear, so I'm only sitting at 8.48. Here's how many times I can do that in a row. So that right there was what you could get out of Dashing Strike Quicksilver. That's probably a lot of distance covered, and that's with less Spirit Regen than I can get. I can get way more Spirit Regen than that. So it is possible that Dashing Strike will now be the new way to move around. It might actually be faster than Tempest Rush. We'll have to see. I think that's really interesting that they're making changes. Flying sidekick, 100% chance to stun all the enemies you hit for 1 second. Cool concept. Again, usable. Is it going to be good? I don't know. That's a pretty tough sell for me. Stunning things in this game is traditionally pretty bad. That sucked. That was a very unfortunate clicking of a skill name. Oh my god, it's so long. But apparently I missed it? Oh, Crusader. Oh, I see, it just went back. Whoops. Okay, anyway. So that's very cool. I like all the changes to Dashing Strike. I really hope they don't break it. Right now, Dashing Strike is the most fun way to play monks because you get to fly around and bouncing everywhere, and making it cost a lot of spirit is a good way to make that not happen. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that and make sure that it doesn't end up being terrible. Inner Sanctuary got tons of changes. I think, based on the changes to Inner Sanctuary, that it is now a must-take skill. So that's my my prognosis based on the changes to Inner Sanctuary. I would not ever not have this on my bar because there's too many things that it does that are worth having. So, first thing, no more spirit cost. That's great. Second thing, 20-second cooldown can now be reduced to about 10 from Beacon plus Diamond plus Paragon levels. So that's the things to keep in mind, is that you can get this to about a 10-second cooldown. So it still creates a thing on the ground for 5 seconds, but instead of people not being able to pass through it, people in that thing take 35% less damage. That's pretty terrible, to be totally honest. That's just a terrible effect. So if that was all Inner Sanctuary dead, I would say it's pretty terrible. So let's look at the runes. Because again, like 35% reduced damage is not really helping anyone. Like that's not providing any value to the battlefield. Yes, maybe you can tank something that you couldn't tank normally, but is that justification to have an entire skill? I don't think so. I think that there's too many other skills that do too many better things. First rune, they changed Forbidden Palace, which I think used to increase your damage by 15%, maybe? I don't know. It was terrible. Oh yeah, you can see it here. Yeah, used to increase everyone's damage by 15%. You now dash to a location and then put up a shield for 2,477 damage and 100% of your globes, and drop the Inner Sanctuary. So this dashes to a place for free. Again, this is no spirit cost. Dash to a place, drop an Inner Sanctuary, and heal everybody or put up a shield that's relatively large if you have globes bonus. I think that's pretty rad. Hard to justify in anything but PvP. In PvP, that's bonkers because it teleports you and it saves you at the same time. So that's pretty rad in PvP. I'm not sure that that's viable in PvE because, again, shields are not that great, especially on cooldown. I like the flavor a lot because it's like dash to your friend and save him with a bubble, which is really cool. So we'll have to see if that works. Consecration still increases the duration to 7, but that's not useful. Temple of Protection, projectiles cannot pass through Inner Sanctuary, and any resource generation inside is increased by 35%. This is why I do not think this skill is passable. This effect is so strong. So bullets can't pass through is better than you'd think it is. Because instead of reducing your damage taken by 35%, that actually can impact your ability to live. There are bullets in this game that do so much damage that blocking them completely is fantastic. Plus, it means that you're going to absorb more than 35% less damage, right? So instead of taking 35% less damage, now maybe you're taking 40-50% less damage. So it's a better skill from a damage redux perspective. And resource regeneration is something you just can't come by. There's not things that have it. So there's Guardian's Path is resource regen, and then the Templar passive is resource regen. And that's it. Nothing else has resource regen, which means that you can use this to do broken things. There are just things that you can do that are unfair when you have this. So for instance, a great example would be, let's say you have enough spirit per second to spam 10 Lashing Tail kicks, right? And you're a Hand of Yatar Lashing Tail kick monk. With 35% additional resource generation, you actually might be able to just straight go infinite. So you lay down Inner Sanctuary, be invincible, because it's reducing damage you're taking, and then just start laying down the Hand of Yatars, and your spirit doesn't go down. Things like that you can't get from other skills, so it's unique. I love that. Wonderful. Next rune. Safe Haven now heals for more than it used to and is increased by your LPS. I don't think that's viable for the same reason that I don't think putting a big shield is viable. It's just it's too little on a cooldown. It's like, I guess it's possible. I don't think it's a good skill. It's nice that there's flavor to it. Life per second increases. It's very cool. Forbidden Palace. This is the reason I think 95% of monks should take this skill. Enemies inside Inner Sanctuary will now take 30% increased damage. That's a ton. That is more than unactivated Mantra of Conviction overall. That is so much increased damage. That's almost strictly, no, that's about the same as Faith in the Light, but it lasts 5 seconds instead of 3. That's almost guaranteed to get you more damage than Faith in the Light, and it's for your whole team. This skill cannot not be used. If there's 2 people in a game and you don't have Inner Sanctuary Forbidden Palace, you're making mistakes, because that's just so strong. Also, it snares them by 60%. So if you place it on a group of mobs, it's that much harder for them to not be a group of mobs. This skill's so good. I'm really happy about this. 30% is enough to actually make this viable. Again, it's going to be key to get the cooldown lowered, because 5 seconds with a 20-second cooldown may not be good enough. You may need to drop that cooldown to like 15, maybe 10 seconds for it to be really good. But that's just so much increased damage. There's no way I could justify that. I'm thinking Inner Sanctuary, Forbidden Palace, and Blinding Flash, Faith in the Light, when you combine the two with maybe overall, that's bonkers. It's so much damage. So that's really cool. Really happy about that change. Alright, now let's look at some of the new skills that they're going to add. So Mystic Rhythm allows you to increase the amount of your spirit gens produce by 2 per hit up to 3 times. So it's a stacking buff. So your first hit with Fist of Thunder produces 8, your second hit produces 10, your third hit produces 12, and your fourth hit produces 14, if I understand the rune correctly. Is that true? Yeah, it's probably like that. It probably goes 8, 10, 12, 14. So every hit now produces 14 spirit. So that's significant spirit generation. Then, when you use a Spirit Spender, it consumes all the stacks, so up to 3 stacks, and increases the damage by 8% for each stack consumed. This is basically what we've always been asking for. So this is a way to actually combo as a monk. So you go hit, 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 stacks it 3 times, and then you go bell, and your bell hits for 24% more damage. That's freaking amazing. I'm super happy about this. It allows you to generate spirit faster, no matter what spirit gen you're using, because it's not restrictive, although it is flat out better for Fist of Thunder, as will always be the case. Everyone loves Fist of Thunder. And then it's a way to actually increase your damage using your passives, which is something monks basically don't have. This is great. I'm sure there's math out there that will dictate whether or not it's worth using. I think it's a very cool skill. It also does not require multiple spirit generators. You just need 1 spirit generator for it to work. So it's an alternative to Combo Strike for increasing damage. Momentum. Moving 30 yards increases your damage by 20% for 4 seconds. My guess is the way this works is once you have moved 30 yards and continue moving, you get a buff that gives you 20% damage, lasts for 4 seconds, and refreshes itself every yard you move or something like that. So that's my guess. So as you're Tempest Rushing around, you have this buff that's just going boop, 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 constantly full, 20% increased damage. As soon as you stop moving, it starts to tick down the 4 seconds. That's pretty broken. So that will immediately go into my bar. I'll never, ever, ever not use that skill, because moving 30 yards and then killing things is what a Tempest Rush Monk does. That's like that's my jam. That's how I roll. So for pure Tempest Rush Monks, it's just 20% increased damage. So that's pretty good. For non-pure, because you never stop Tempest Rushing, for non-pure Tempest Rush Monks, it does mean that you have to move, do something, but that's how I currently play the game. It remains to be seen. I think this is extraordinarily well designed. This skill speaks to me of good game design, because this incentivizes you to do something you wouldn't normally do, right? Like, you're not normally focused on how much am I moving? Is my monk moving enough? That's never something you've thought. So, unless, I mean, maybe you have. I'm sorry, I don't mean to presume. But yeah, so like I think that's a really, really, really well designed skill. I'm excited to see this one. Again, also excited to see Mystic Rhythm. I think both are really cool. Epiphany, we don't know what any of the runes do yet, so it's hard to tell if it's a good skill or not. Anything with a 120-second cooldown is, in my opinion, a bad skill, unless it has increased the duration or reduced the cooldown as one of the runes. Looking at you, Archon, and looking at you, Wrath of the Berserker. If it doesn't, if it actually requires waiting 120 seconds to use again, it's probably not a useful skill for PvE. For PvP, it could be. 120 seconds is pretty long, even for PvP. It's been shown that Wrath of the Berserker is not necessarily good for barbs in PvP, even though it should be. So I'm pretty skeptical about this. I don't really care. Anything that has a long cooldown is usually pretty useless for me. If they do add increases duration or reduces cooldown as one of these runes, I think they're making a big mistake. They clearly don't like that, as they've said specifically that they don't like that that's the way Archon and Wrath work. So I'd be really surprised if they did, and if they don't, I think this is going to be a meh skill. Whew! Well, that was a lot. So that is my take on the Datamined changes. Yeah, I may go into the item bonuses that were Datamined at some point later, but for now, I'm mostly excited about getting a teleport on my Fist of Thunder, because I use Quickening, so that's going to be cool. I like the no spirit cost on a bunch of the things that people use all the time, like Breath of Heaven and Serenity. The changes to Mantra of Healing are cool for hardcore. If Way of the 100 Fist attacks faster, it could be interesting, especially for Nirvana monks, who currently have to use this terrible skill in order to get their combo off. Mantra of Conviction Reclamation is my favorite change. I really hope that it's a viable way to gain spirit, and I'll try and break this if possible. What else? Just a little synopsis here. Wave of Light no longer has knockback is the best. I mean, that's actually the best change. I'm not excited about it as much as I'm just like, cool, Wave of Light was already overpowered, still overpowered, but more. Lashing Tail Kick being viable is really cool. Again, remember, you don't actually run 25% faster than you do. You won't run 25% faster than you did previous to this patch. You already are getting this bonus in-game right now for Tempest Rush. Dashing Strike change, pretty ambivalent. I'm really worried. I'm worried about the Dashing Strike change, because it could make Dashing Strike either the most broken or just terrible, and that worries me. All the Inner Sanctuary changes look fantastic. I'm really happy about all of them. I think the skill is now fantastic. Forbidden Palace is one of the stronger buffs to monks. And then the passes are cool. Cool! Alright, that'll do it, guys. I'll probably make another video relatively soon. I'm going to be doing an XP per hour video, I think, because that's what people are mostly concerned with right now with the upcoming changes to Paragon levels. Paragon 2.0, whatever. And I'd like to make some mechanics videos because found out some new tricks. Alright, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.